Hi, I'm Lori Byron, a pediatrician that has cared for kids in eastern Montana for several decades now.
And I'm Rob Byron, an internal medicine specialist who cared for adults for several decades across southern Montana. Together we're your co-hosts on Our Planet, Our Health, which features conversations from people across Montana. Most of our guests are healthcare professionals working to protect health and safety and to help us become aware of how air pollution and climate change affect our health and to bring about changes to mitigate those effects. But health involves us all, not just healthcare professionals. With that in mind, we have guests that are not healthcare professionals, but inspirational and professionals in their own right, working to protect our health for all of us. And today we're very fortunate to have two young adults with that in mind.
So today, entitled Climate in the Courtroom, we have Ulla Jones and Rikki Held, and we're honored that they're both here with us today. So let's start with Ulla. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up, where you were, your family, the values that were incorporated from the way you were raised?
Yes, of course. I grew up in Maryland by the Chesapeake Bay, and my mom's from Montana and my dad's from New Jersey. And for their entire lives, they've been avid hikers and explorers of everywhere in the United States. They met in Yosemite. They were both working there. And so growing up, a lot of our time was spent out on sailboats. My dad worked on them. He was a woodworker. And we moved on to the sailboat when I was about 7, and we went from Maryland down to Florida. And so I spent a lot of my time looking for different species of birds, and I loved playing in the water. And I was just a huge nerd. I loved to be outside, and I would go out with my little notebook, and my biggest idols were always Jane Goodall, and I had this book called Girls Who Looked Under Rocks, so I always knew I wanted to do something with wildlife. And then we moved to Montana when I was 9, and that was just the most exciting thing for me because it was new wildlife, new places to explore. And I still remember the first time I came to the Beartooth Mountains. It was before we moved here. We came to visit my grandparents, and I remember laying on this picnic table and looking at all the stars, and I just knew those mountains were special to me. So I'm really glad to be here in Montana, and I definitely grew up with a lot of value for the environment. So,
Rikki, same question for you.
Yeah, so I grew up on my family's ranch outside of Broadus, Montana, in the southeast corner, and grew up a lot with my dad and my brother and my grandma. And so my grandma was also always just a model for us growing up, really involved with the community, and it was great growing up in that ranch community, having that kind of place to be in. And I'm 5th generation Montanan, so we've been there for a while, and I feel very lucky to have gotten to just be outside on the ranch and be a part of the ranching responsibilities, taking care of livestock and crops, and also just getting to go play in that playground with the river and the trees and the hills and riding horses and all of those things. So I think growing up as a ranch kid, you learn a lot of values about hard work and taking responsibility. And you have to get things done and find tools and ways to get those done. So that's a bit about my growing up.
Cool. And what are some of the principles in your life now that you feel like you picked up from your family?
I think attention to detail. My dad is a big nerd. He never went to college, but he reads all the time. And so anytime we're walking around outside, if he doesn't know what kind of plant it is, he'll look it up later, he'll read about it later. So I feel like growing up, I always got the value of being able to pay attention to what's around you and to care what's around you. And then my mom is just the kindest person I've ever met, I think. So she really instilled in us the value of just treating things with kindness and love. And she always says attitude of gratitude. So being super grateful. I'm definitely that cheesy friend that's oh, I'm so grateful for this tree and I'm so grateful for you, So I think those values are probably the most important.
Yeah, and same thing. My dad has always been really supportive of my brother and I. If I wanted to play soccer, he would make sure that I could do what I wanted to pursue. And with this climate things too, he was making sure that I could do what I wanted, and he was just supportive along the way. And again, with my grandma, she was really a pillar in our community and helping take care of people, and letting people live with her to go to school, and she took care of her siblings, and just a hardworking and practical person that cared a lot about animals and loved just sitting outside watching the birds and the deer, and was always getting stuff done and making things work. So those are
Thank you for
family
that.
values, yeah.
Yeah. Let's, if you don't mind, help our audience learn a little bit more about each of you. Where are you now? What are you doing now?
I just finished my first term of college at Dartmouth. I am studying environmental studies and government, and hopefully with a minor in Middle Eastern studies. I'm super excited to be out there. It was a little scary to go be that far away from home, but I'm super excited about learning more about what I'm passionate about.
Wonderful. Rikki?
And I studied environmental science at Colorado College, and then I've been in Kenya with the Peace Corps the last 2 years teaching biology and chemistry at the high school level. And so I just got back from that a few days ago. And then I'm looking for internships and going into grad school next year to study earth and climate sciences and specify in glaciology.
So you guys both did something that not too many young people do, that is get involved in a lawsuit. And so maybe we'll start with you, Rikki, since Held versus Montana came first a few years ago. Tell us about how that happened, how you got along, how you got involved in it. And
Yeah, I'll just say quickly first, I first got started interested in the sciences, and then moved over and focusing on climate change and climate activism, because I saw it as such a huge issue. But growing up on the ranch, I got to work with some USGS hydrologists and connect that science to my home, and that's how I got interested in the sciences. And through high school, learning about climate change, seeing this issue, and then getting more involved in activism work in college and continuing my studies, because I find the science so interesting, and we have the data, and we can use that to make a difference on the ground, and so we need both of that to solve issues like this. So I heard about the case just from a family friend, heard about OCT, thinking of doing one in Montana, so reached out to them and got involved, and I was one of 16 plaintiffs, and we filed in 2020 with that case, and then it ended in 2024. But the case is against the state of Montana. We're bringing this because they support a fossil fuel-based energy system, which is harming youth especially. Climate change harms everyone, but as youth, we're bringing this case because, as you've talked about a lot, and you're one of the experts on this case, but youth are harmed by air pollution and certain things like impacts like more extreme heat events and things like that. And I also, growing up on my ranch, even my short lifetime, have seen and experienced climate impacts such as wildfires and smoky days and water variability to the ranch, and that affects our livelihood. So that's why I wanted to get involved in the case. And we got to Judge Seeley. She gave us a ruling at the district court and ruled in our favor. And then it was the Montana state, they appealed it to the Montana Supreme Court, and then they also ruled in our favor. And we got an amazing ruling because it was the first constitutional climate lawsuit to get to go to trial and to win in the US. So yeah, it was a landmark constitutional lawsuit, and it's also been used in climate cases and climate litigation around the world too.
Thank you for that. And just for our audience purposes,
Yeah.
OCT is our Children's Trust.
Oh, yes.
And also acknowledging that, Rikki, that you are also one of the plaintiffs in Lighthiser versus the U.S., but maybe you can fill us in on that and why you got involved or how you got involved.
Well, I remember actually the first time I learned about climate change, I think I was like 8. And I remember my mom was trying to put me to bed. And I was like, oh, we can't go to bed. Like, we have to fix this first. And she's it's not that simple. But so I knew I always wanted to be someone who would do something about the things you see in day-to-day life and you're upset about. And so I remember, like, all throughout high school, I would always be like in the kitchen talking with my sister about how angry we are about climate change and our passion about science and stuff like that. And then during my senior year, Lori, I think you reached out to my sister to see if any of her environmental science kids would be interested in being a part of something like this. And no one was really interested in her high school, and then we were talking on the couch that day, and I was like, oh, I'm just so angry that I can't like do anything to help this, and she's like, oh, you definitely could, and then she gave Lori my email, and then I, had the phone call with one of the attorneys, like, what does this entail, what does this involve, and I became one of the 22 youth plaintiffs on Lighthiser v. Trump, which is we're suing the current administration and the current administration's EPA for the Unleashing Fossil Fuels Act, which includes 3 executive orders. And these executive orders are really bad for climate science. They've been taking down EPA findings on all of the websites. They're unleashing fossil fuels in America. They're supporting the big, beautiful, clean coal in America. And all of that is really harmful for youth. And there's plaintiffs from all around the United States. There's a lot of them from Montana, but there's some from Hawaii, Florida, Oregon, California, all of these different states, because it impacts all of us. So we had our evidentiary hearing in September, and the case got dismissed, but the judge agreed that we are experiencing harm, and these executive orders do make that harm worse, and we're appealing it to the Ninth Circuit Court.
Thank you. Yeah. So when most people think about going to court and suing somebody or something, they think about making money. What were you guys asking for in both of these cases?
Yeah, we haven't been suing for money, and our experts have done this pro bono, and so that's not what we're after. We want declaratory relief from the courts, and saying we want them basically to declare that these actions that our state or our federal government are doing, to declare them unconstitutional. So, for example, in Montana, we're talking about some constitutional rights, such as to a clean and healthful environment, also to dignity and health, and affecting our public trust resources. Those things that were protected in our Constitution, those rights are being violated because Montana is knowingly doing these actions that are harming us plaintiffs. So we just want that declaratory relief, and then hopefully declaring those things unconstitutional, like what Judge Seeley in the Montana Supreme Court did, withheld. We're hoping that means that the state will now transition to a more renewable energy system, and away from fossil fuels, and emissions, which contribute to climate change and is causing harm to its land and its people. And you can talk about Lighthiser too, but it's the same thing with our U.S. constitutional rights.
Yeah, the goals are similar with Lighthiser, especially because we talk about our Fifth Amendment right to life. And then I think another important part of Lighthiser, what it means to me and what we're asking for, is the judicial branch to kind of stand up for us, because one of the things we mentioned is Article 2 of the Constitution, and how these executive orders are executive overreach. And so we really just want the judicial branch to say, it's not okay to just blindly pollute the environment, and for the government to willingly do these actions that harms us, and to think about the ways that it impacts the American people and the American land that we all value so much.
Okay, thank you for that. And Ula, you mentioned speaking with the attorneys, and I feel confident that Rikki, you did too, and early in the Held and Lighthiser cases. But did you feel pressured by the attorneys to take part in this? And lots of people think there's a lot of pressure coming down on the plaintiffs in this to participate. Did you all feel pressured from attorneys or anyone else to participate?
No, I feel like I was almost the one that was overly excited and oh, when can I be a part of this? How can I get involved? And I think there's no pressure coming from the attorneys. That conversation was, I think it was a lot of me talking about what the Montana land means to me and the ways climate change has affected me, and not just myself, but people who don't have the same privilege to speak up and to speak out and to go to court for these kinds of things. And I think the attorneys it was a lot of them listening and saying, this is how we can help, this is how we can use these skill sets that we've gone to school for, and how we can create this platform for you to speak out and for you to use these rights that you have to sue the government, to speak up for something you care about. And so I don't think there's any pressure. I think it's really a lot more they're giving us resources to use our voices, and I think that's really beautiful and really kind of them.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. They've really been supportive in everything we've wanted to do, and we've had amazing support from people around the state, just reaching out from our attorneys, from our experts, and communications team, just everyone coming together on this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Cool. So we're both health professionals, of course, as you know, and this show is about, it's called Our Planet, Our Health, because the condition of our planet affects our health. Can you all tell the audience how you feel like your health and your mental health has been affected related to this climate crisis and related to both executive orders and actions from government that don't seem to be protecting you?
Yeah. I can start, but yeah, just some of the impacts I mentioned briefly, just growing up on the ranch, for example, just, you know, with a longer wildfire season and with climate change, that doesn't necessarily cause specific wildfires, but it means that there are more frequent and can be more severe wildfires or severe weather events. And so having smoke in the air on summer days and having extreme heat events, like in 2021, I was working out on the ranch, you know, building fence and doing all those tasks, and even at my family's motel in Broadus and cleaning rooms and going outside. There's ash falling from the sky from wildfires. That was when some towns had to be evacuated and brought to Broadus, and then just the extreme heat and 110-degree days. And for ranchers especially, we're so connected with the environment. We rely on it for our livelihood, and ranchers have to be outside, and you can't, you know, go inside when you have an air quality alert on your phone. You have to keep taking care of your livestock. Or if there's a wildfire going on, that of course affects livestock and drought. And if there's wildfires that burn power lines, then you can't pump water to your cattle, and then they have to travel farther between the river bottom and the sparse grass in the hills. That's more on the livestock, but yeah, just air quality. People experience the effects from extreme heat, and then the mental health impacts are a lot, especially for our generations when we can't wait for the next ones to do something about it. And we've known about this issue for so long, and the change has been slow. There is change, and there are a lot of people working on this. But it is really frustrating when your government systems aren't protecting you. And we have the science, we have the knowledge, and we have solutions for this issue. And that's even what our experts in the court case, we got the science into the court record and how we can switch to things like wind, water, and solar, and solutions that Montana can take, and they're not. So that's frustrating when your constitutional rights are being impacted.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty similarly, the air quality. I've done cross country and track since middle school, and that's one thing my family loves. A lot of us are runners, and there were so many times where I got really sick during summer training, or I would get like awful sore throats for just weeks on end, or you're like looking at your watch like, why can't I run faster right now? And or your coach is texting and saying, hey, we can't have practice today, like the air quality is too bad, and then you're running stair laps in some random gym going crazy like a hamster on a wheel. But it's really frustrating, and it's also like me not being able to run outside isn't the end of the world, but to think about the people who don't have the privilege to speak up and have to be outside and have way worse air quality. And my family, my parents live in Red Lodge right by Rock Creek, and with the climate change and the increasing temperatures in the early spring and the late spring, the snowpack has been melting way faster than it should be. So there's a really big flood, and I think it was about 2022 in Red Lodge, and the water was, we couldn't leave our house because the water was up to right the road to get out from our driveway. And seeing the water get that close, and then seeing the water it ruined so many homes in Red Lodge, put so many people out of their homes. And then to see those health impacts right here at home in Montana, and then see the health impacts across the whole world, and then see these people who have the power to change it, who have the power to say yes to renewable energy and to say no to fossil fuels, and to put in regulations and adopt policies that actually help us and promote our health and see them not doing it. It's really frustrating. It does take a big toll on your mental health, especially in Montana. Everyone loves the outdoors here. And I feel like the first thing I do when I get off a plane after being away from Montana is taking a deep breath and think, oh, there's that mountain air, and just like it's a breath of relief. And when that air isn't the good quality of Montana air that we're used to, it's really sad. And then being outside, going to Glacier Park and seeing that the glaciers are getting smaller every year and stuff like that, it just breaks your heart for the planet that you grew up loving and admiring. And so it's really heartbreaking, I think.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing and understanding some of those frustrations. But let's switch it around and on a positive note. It's overwhelming, it's daunting. Are there other things that you two are doing or that you would like to see others, and I particularly say in your age groups of your peers, your friends, and others doing in relation to climate change?
Yeah, working on these cases is my main work, but also getting involved with any organizations like Northern Plains and CCL and those types of groups. There's a lot of people working on this, and so being a part of these cases, it's been awesome and a positive thing to see all these wonderful, intelligent, and hardworking people coming in this together. So yeah, I would just keep reaching out and continue the conversation and yeah, just get involved and you know, we have these steps down, all right. I think that people have talked about these a bit, but all we can do is what we can do, and it can be terrifying, but you have to keep finding paths forward. And also, I usually tell people just to stick with what they're interested in. So I was interested in the science side, but if you're a writer or an artist, or you want to go into policy making or any of these avenues, we need, or health experts, we need people from every side to be part of solving this.
Thank you.
I agree. I have a mentor at Dartmouth who always says, and he says this usually when it comes to having a big stack of homework in front of you, but he always says, like, how does a mouse eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And I think the elephant in the room here is like climate change and how daunting it can be, especially to young people who don't feel like they have that much power. And of course, like, being a part of these court cases is super, super important to me. That's probably the biggest thing I'm doing. But I'm also involved in research at Dartmouth on climate litigation. I think that's mainly because it's my interest. I'm really interested in policy. But it's like Rikki said, whatever you do, you can do little things that work towards it, and everyone has a small part in knowing that you have power and that you can speak up, and no matter who you are, you can go outside, you can protest, you can go use your voice in the ballot box, you can call your senators when you don't like a piece of legislation that impacts your home, and you can also go support your parks, you can go use your public lands and show the people who, the powers that be, that people do love our home and we do use it and we do need it to stay healthy. But I think everyone has a small piece to play.
Yeah, and democracy is a continuous process. So exactly what you said, reach out to representatives who have a say in this, go to courts, go to representatives, yeah, it's all important.
And to stay positive. I know I get a lot of inspiration from the people I work with, and like, I knew about Rikki before I got involved in Lighthiser v. Trump because I had a biology teacher who was like, oh, I know the teenagers who are suing the state. And so being able to get inspired by the people around you and to get hope from the fact that other people care is really important too, to stay resilient.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for both your participation and for being willing to stand up and say, I want to do something. I think that's one of the biggest things that makes a difference to many people around you, both in your age groups, but in all age groups. So thank you for that. We're getting pretty close to time. So what are a couple things that you would like our audience to take away from our conversations today?
I guess one thing that I was really thinking about when we went to trial and we're in the courtroom, and I was about to go testify in front of the judge and everyone, wanting to try to say things right and get everything right. But the only thing I had in my mind was responsibility, and I was thinking responsibility with our state government especially, and you know, one of their main arguments was that you know, we're one state and we can't do anything. This is a global issue. But we have to take responsibility, in anything that you can have control over, then you have to do the right thing based on your values. And you can go back to those, especially in Montana, we have values about taking care of your neighbor and taking care of the land and your communities. And so you have to go back to those. And we all care about these same things, the same values. So it's not a political issue, it's just about taking care of people now and the next generations, which is what we're all about here. So if you're a government, you have to take responsibility. If you're a citizen, you also have a responsibility in part of this process to keep talking and reaching out. So that's what I would say.
Great.
I think I keep circling back to my mom always says, like, do things with love. And so when I'm like, you know, getting ready to go do something scary, especially when it comes to like speaking out against your government, I always think of doing it out of love for my home and for the people who don't have the privilege to speak out. And just like you say, responsibility, I think with any privilege comes responsibility to use it to make a difference for those who don't have it. And I think in America we have such a privilege when it comes to our judicial system that we can participate in it. And there are so many countries who are struggling because of our pollution, and so many people in our own states and our own homes who don't have the resources to or have the time or the wherewithal to be educated or to even know or to take the time out of their day to go to a courtroom. And so I think of doing it with love for them and with care for not only my future, but their future, their children's future, and everyone's right to have a clean, healthy home that they can love and appreciate, like Montana.
I don't think anybody could say it better than that.
Yeah, well said.
We're we're both tremendously grateful for you all and the 16, 15 with you and the 21 with, or 20 with both of you on the Lighthiser case, and what you've been willing to stand up and do to help protect our state and our world. So.
Yeah, and thank you guys for all of the work you guys have done and helping stand up for us too.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us on Our Planet, Our Health.